James Anderson had never imagined that his life would come to this. A cold, lifeless cell in a maximum security detention center. His freedom stripped away by an immigration issue that felt as though it had come from nowhere. Born and raised in the United States, James had always felt like an outsider in a country that had promised him so much. His dreams of prosperity and success had been shattered by one bureaucratic error. An expired visa he hadn't even known about. The guards didn't care for his story. In their eyes, he was just another statistic, another man of color trapped by a system that often forgot the most vulnerable. His cell, with its dingy walls and dim lighting, felt like a metaphor for his life. Trapped in a cage, uncertain of when or how he'd get out. Days turned into weeks, and James' once strong, optimistic spirit began to wane. He became just another face in a crowd of men who had all been forgotten. The loneliness gnawed at him as he spent his days pacing the tiny cell, imagining the world James Anderson outside, the life he had left behind. He was no criminal, but in this place, he was treated like one. The prison was filled with men from all walks of life, many of them wrongfully detained like him, many of them trying to survive in a system that didn't care if they lived or died. Yet, James fought to hold on. He had no family on the outside, no one who could visit or offer him any hope. All he had was his own willpower to survive, to push back against the hopelessness that seeped into his bones. The first few months were the hardest. The guards, indifferent to his plight, made his life even more unbearable. He'd wake up every day to the sound of metal doors slamming, knowing that he was trapped in a world where he no longer belonged. He fought back tears in the solitude of his cell, wondering if this would be his life forever. He made a few friends along the way, fellow detainees who were also facing the same nightmare. There was Marcus, a man from Jamaica who had been in the detention center for over a year, his case dragging on without resolution. And then there was Tom, a quiet man from the Philippines, who rarely spoke, but had a presence that made people respect him. Each day was a fight for survival, fighting to stay sane, to stay strong. James did what he could to maintain his dignity. He exercised in a small space, reading whatever books he could get his hands on, keeping his mind sharp. But it wasn't just the physical struggle. It was the emotional toll that drained him. One night, as James lay on his thin mattress, staring up at the ceiling, he heard something that broke the monotony. The sound of high heels echoing down the hall. It was rare for any woman to visit the prison, especially a woman dressed in the professional garb of a judge. He didn't know it yet, but this woman would change his life forever. Judge Eliza Green was a woman of power and influence. At 38, she had already made a name for herself in the legal world, known for her fair yet firm judgments, her determination to right wrongs, and her unwavering commitment to justice. She was often seen as a beacon of hope in a world that could feel dark and unjust. Her visit to the detention center was part of a program to review cases that had been languishing in the system. As a judge, she had seen her fair share of injustice. But as she walked through the sterile hallways of the prison, she was about to witness something that would strike a chord deep within her. James was standing in line with a group of other detainees when he first saw her. Her commanding presence caught his attention immediately. Her eyes, sharp and determined, scanned the room with an air of authority. But there was something more, a compassion beneath the surface, a curiosity that made her stand out among the other professionals who visited. When their eyes met, something strange happened. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Eliza looked at him, and for reasons she couldn't explain, she felt a deep sense of connection. James didn't know it then, but she felt his pain. She could see the exhaustion on his face, the hopelessness in his eyes. She had seen countless men and women like him, caught in a system that didn't care. But this one, James Anderson, he stood out to her. His silent defiance spoke volumes. The guards led the detainees into a room where Eliza was conducting her review. When it was James' turn, she didn't just glance at his file. She studied it. She read his entire case, his history, and his legal standing. There was no reason for James to be in this prison. The errors in his case were undeniable, yet he was still here, suffering in silence. Eliza's heart softened. There was something about his quiet dignity, his resilience, that moved her. She knew the system could be unforgiving, but this felt different. This felt wrong. After the review, Eliza couldn't shake the feeling that she had to do something. She had the power to help him, to pull him out of this nightmare. But as much as she wanted to, there were rules, procedures, and layers of bureaucracy that made everything more complicated. Her office had the ability to expedite cases, to push for changes, but it wasn't always easy, especially when dealing with something as complex as immigration. But she couldn't just walk away from James, not after what she had seen. So, she decided to take action. Eliza used her position to fast-track James' case. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't fast, but she moved mountains behind the scenes. She pushed through the paperwork, contacted the right people, and made sure that James' case was reviewed with urgency. It took weeks, but finally, the decision came down. James would be released. When Eliza visited James to tell him the news, his reaction was one of disbelief. He couldn't understand it at first. For so long, he had been abandoned, forgotten. To hear that someone was actually going to help him, that someone cared, was almost too much to bear. His eyes welled with tears as he stood up to face her. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Eliza smiled, but there was something deeper in her heart, something that had begun to grow since that first day they had locked eyes. There was an undeniable pull between them, a bond forged in the fires of hardship and shared humanity. She had helped him escape this nightmare, but in truth, he had helped her too. He had reminded her why she became a judge in the first place. To make a difference, to fight for the voiceless. James' release from prison was only the beginning. As time passed, Eliza and James kept in touch, their professional relationship slowly evolving into something more. They met for coffee, then dinner, talking about their lives, their dreams, their fears. James was trying to rebuild his life, trying to find work and make up for lost time. But Eliza was there for him every step of the way. And then, one night, after months of friendship and support, Eliza realized that her feelings for James had deepened. What had begun as a professional respect had turned into something more. Something she hadn't expected, but something that felt right. James, too, had felt it. He had never expected to find love in the midst of his suffering. But Eliza was different. She had seen him, really seen him, and for the first time in his life, he felt like he mattered. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, a karmic twist turned their world upside down. Eliza's colleagues found out about her growing relationship with James. It wasn't illegal, but it was frowned upon. They questioned her judgment, her professionalism. Some even suggested that she had let her emotions cloud her decision-making. Eliza was faced with a choice, her career or her love for James. Eliza stood at a crossroads. She loved her job, her career. But James had become more than just a man she had helped. He had become her partner, her equal, someone who made her feel alive in ways she never expected. In the end, Eliza chose love. She resigned from her position as a judge, knowing that she could not live with herself if she had to choose between the man she loved and the career she had built. And so, James and Eliza built a life together. A life forged through struggle, survival, and ultimately love. What do you think about James and Eliza's journey? Do you believe that love can truly come from the most unlikely of places? Drop your thoughts and comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.